Welcome back to The Exchange by Evolution, a melting pot of ideas and inspiration shared by some of the most successful tech leaders. I'm Liyana, and I help connect businesses with tech talent, and today I'm your host. In today's episode, we'll be discussing on the topic data literacy, the importance of data fluency for all employees. Joining me for the session is Arpit Maheshwari from Microsoft and Thomas Allen from RSK Center of Sustainability of Excellence. Before we get into introductions, just a quick disclaimer. Just a disclaimer before we get into the discussion, all thoughts and views spoken by any of the speakers or myself are only representative of each individual and not that of their company. Now that we've gotten that out of the way, gentlemen, would you like to introduce yourselves? Perhaps, Tom, you can go first.
Thank you. So I'm Thomas Allen. I'm the head of digital water for RSK. We're a international consultancy focused on construction and environmental services. My particular specialty is on the water industry, so helping water utilities become more efficient by using digital technology.
That's great. My name is Arpit. I'm a senior cloud solutions architect for data and AI Microsoft in Singapore. I've been working here for almost 1 year now, and prior to that, I have been working around data industry, data-driven, data-related industries, doing work like data warehousing, data engineering across clouds, public clouds, on-prem since 12 years now. So that is my tenure with data.
Okay. Very impressive, and I think it will be interesting to see the thoughts and insights that both of you will bring into this podcast. So, let's jump right into the first question, which is, what is data literacy and why is it so important? Arpit, would you like to go first?
Sure. I think this is the fundamental thing which every person in every organization should be aware and educated about. We know things are getting overwhelming, complicated with the advent of OpenAI, ChatGPT and things like that, right? So people are wondering, how do we exactly get started off with these stuff, right? So it is equally or perhaps more important for people to understand the fundamentals, either as a user or as an integrator. For example, I can give you an anecdote from one of my previous organizations when I was working before Microsoft Singapore. I had joined over there as a data architect back then, and we had and this company was, of course, you cannot compare that with the scale of Microsoft or bigger organizations. It was a smaller company, which was good for me in the sense that I was working with other stakeholders closely. So our CPO had back then created a smaller group for designers, the engineering team, and the product. So this was called as DEP. So when I had joined this company as a data architect back then, my stakeholders, and particularly from the design team, they would ask me, "Hey, I know you've joined as a data architect, and it has been around like 2-3 months now. We didn't get a chance or an opportunity to have any overlap. But what exactly do you do? And you have just joined, and before you joined, we still have a data scientist and a data analyst. So what exactly do you guys do?" And I'm curious about that. So that struck me hard, because previously I didn't work in a kind of a setup where I had non-technical or non-data proficient people around me. So that really got me thinking about, people in every organization should be at least aware of what data people do and what it exactly means for them. And interestingly, I was reading an article on LinkedIn back then, which is relevant for this conversation over here. So a renowned person had written, "Intuition drives ideas, data drives decision." So I didn't say the same thing to her, but I tried to explain her how we as a team could be of value to what you're doing, and not just your team, but perhaps we are the guys who would try to empower all the lines of business, be it finance, be it marketing, be it sales, product, and even the design team. So I gave her an example. So you guys do your designing, and I'm seeing that currently you do a lot of polling, right? So you send across your polls and options on our communicator. Hey, which of these design looks good? Do you think it would get more clicks? This would work out. This is more driven from intuition. People could have their own biases because that's internal company communication, right? So this is something that you do, but why don't we scale it out and roll it out to a bigger audience? We might have lesser biases. And then the way how you would be able to do it, if you would understand like what all data would be relevant for you to make decisions, as I said, right? So data would help you to drive decisions. So this was my experience from this company back then, which I tried my best to help her understand on what data literacy means. And then subsequently other related things like data democratization or data quality, which are like subsequent chapters. But this was my anecdote about data literacy, which I hope this helped her in understanding what data literacy is about.
Yeah, interesting that, sounds like you're the first person that she asked all these questions to. But, okay, Tom, do you have any similar experience to that? Or?
Yeah, absolutely. So similar kind of experience, and we used to have the mantra of data, information, insight, action. And I think that when we initially started that, it was a debate about where's the handover point between the IT team and the business. Like, is it on the insight and action, and IT just deals with the data and information? But actually, I think over time now people have gotten more exposure to the raw data, and that's really helpful for IT to allow people to see that raw data as well, and allow them to apply their own data quality logic, as you mentioned. It's not always great. There are sometimes challenges of maybe people running off in one direction or the other with their own data sets. But yeah, I'm a firm believer in kind of the data democratization. So it's a big bonus for sure.
Okay. And you guys mentioned about how there's access to raw data in your experience. And this person that you spoke to, she didn't really know anything about data. So how do people that are non-technical, how would you suggest to them, how do you approach this data now that they have a bit of knowledge about data and they're having access to their raw data?
So I can give my example, and again, this would come from my previous experiences before joining Microsoft. And Microsoft, perhaps it's a big company, and so I would talk about other experience which were more closely related to the other lines of business back then. So once this got to, and I had some impact on helping people understand the importance of data once data literacy was settled. So then obviously the next question which was asked to me, okay, all good. Now we understand what you do, what the data engineers do, what the data scientists do, what the data analysts do. And then perhaps they realize that perhaps for them, their stakeholders could be more of data analysts and data scientists back then, because then they were able to differentiate, okay, this is what data analysts do. So they would help them to visualize data in a more readable, understandable, comprehensible manner. So that was the first thing which they understood, okay, that there are dashboards relevant for them to understand how their designs were making an impact and certain metrics. So second thing, or the next stage of data literacy, was understanding about metrics, what metrics are relevant for them. For example, so if you are making a product and app, so you understand that CTR, click-through rate, impressions, clicks, are some of the basic metrics which you should be aware of. So as a designer, I spoke and I asked, hey, what do you think? Are these metrics relevant for you? You think like tracking and monitoring these metrics would help you have a bigger impact on what you're doing? So that was the next step. And when this was settled and when this was understood and aligned on, they closely worked with some of the data analysts. Previously, our analysts used to create dashboards and visualizations to other teams, PMs, yes, product managers, yes. But then we had more stakeholders coming in, more ideas evolving around how particular data could be tweaked. I wouldn't say tweaked, but rather looked from a different angle, from designers' eyes. But that was the other step. And then in the process, the designers suggested some other metrics, which definitely we, not being the domain expert about design, spoke to us about. So that was the next step that they actually helped to make our data consumable from different point of view or different eyesights. So that was the next stage, which really helped us to, I wouldn't say to achieve data at the fluency level, but at the next stage level after the data literacy was done.
It's that collaboration.
Yeah,
and exactly, it's between the technical resource and the domain expert. Exactly. I've seen it so many times where a data scientist will like produce a really good looking dashboard, really good looking report, and the domain expert takes one look at it, and the scale on the axis is completely wrong. There's a massive anomaly in the data, and the data scientist says, it's like, no, it's not. Like at its core, it was wrong. There was bad data in there that they just didn't understand the context of.
Absolutely. So speaking of that, and also I think you had mentioned previously, so once this was done and people were excited about learning and utilizing and consuming data, they had some of the data which was not coming from a centralized data warehouse. They had other sources on doing their data visualizations. For example, there are many tracking tools in which you can do your B2B, B2C analytics on how your marketing campaigns are doing, things like that. Or perhaps, some of the metrics. And then at the later stage, when our data engineers would clean up the data and would be transformed, data quality would come into picture. Then we also used to have those ambiguities. If you're seeing these numbers, why don't match? It's your numbers coming from data warehouse.
I think that's why I said that that is a challenge, because I mean we're a Microsoft customer, which wasn't planning for but we do use Power BI. It was actually a previous company where they rolled out Power BI dashboarding capability to everyone in the business, and the challenge I had was that people were building these pretty good looking dashboards based on data, but it was data stored in an Excel sheet stored locally. We were trying to build a integrated automated data platform, and when the management looked, hey, like these guys have got a dashboard and you haven't, like they're so far ahead of you. And it's like, no, it's just an Excel sheet that's been made to look pretty.
Absolutely.
So the kind of democratization of those data and people giving access to those kind of tools to people is really powerful. But we have to kind of make sure that everyone's talking from the same source as well. That's absolutely the main thing. Absolutely.
And a related thing on that example, and which is the other way around. Many times I've seen in my previous companies and organizations is that when they are given like at least good dashboard, which what we think would be relevant for them, so people do the other way around as well. So they would export the data to Excel. Analytics using that, so that's other way around as well.
Okay, very interesting to see. I think sometimes it sounds like it is like an aesthetic thing. Like, okay, this dashboard looks pretty. Oh no, it looks fancy. Like, and
it gets the attention of management.
Yeah. So, how do you then, sort of promote data literacy among data? Like, how do you get them to use it correctly, or are there any consequences when they lack the data literacy skills?
Yeah, I think from what I've learned, everyone knows this now. Data is collected, and pretty much every activity you do in life, whether you like it or not, is data everywhere. And in my old role, when I looked after IT systems and data, there would be project steering board every month, and they go, right, what are all the projects we need to involve Tom with that are related to IT and data? And it's every project. So it's like I got involved with every project, and I couldn't escape it. Like, okay, you guys need to learn the basics, because otherwise you rely on, a single point, IT specialism or data specialism, when actually everyone ends it.
So same thing. So when I was head of data with Trove, one of my previous organizations before joining Microsoft, so the next challenge for me was to help build a data driven, or rather to create this data driven culture over there. And so once these were settled, good or bad, I mean, that was a challenging time, because once the people had the basic understanding around data, So we obviously got more requests from our stakeholders with the limited team members and limited capacity. So that was again an interesting topic to cover. But yeah, once that was done, I think it was a good problem to solve. People at least were aware about, okay, there's a team, there's data team over there, which can actually help them and consuming some data which previously they were not aware of could be of use to them. Or perhaps if they were seeing some numbers on some of the tracking dashboards like mixed balance or you name it, which didn't match with some of the dashboards which we gave to them afterwards. And it was really an insightful and healthy conversation later. So being a domain expert, people would help the data engineers or the data team understand, okay, hey, see, I feel you might have missed out some business logic over there. And then also the vice versa. In this regards would be, okay, I understand. And also one of the factor why your numbers aren't matching with what we are giving to you could be because of the data quality measures, how good or bad the data is. So which is the next step for them to understand that, yeah, not all data could be good or is ready to be consumed or trusted.
Okay. So you mentioned about tools, right? And how can everybody approach the data, I guess, in a more uniformed way? Because there's different teams approaching and using this data. The ones that are more technically inclined and the ones that are the domain experts. So what are some tools, or how do you go about selecting the appropriate tools for this situation that we have here?
And you're not allowed to say.
No. Interestingly, I wouldn't say that tool plays an important role over here. It's more about the process. So I'll explain what I mean over here is that, so we had a team of around 3 to 4 data engineers. And then how I as a head of data had organized my team was that I had created a centralized team to help create this data platform first. And then we had the respective data engineers aligned to a particular line of business. So having said that, these data engineers, of course, they understand each other. They talk the C language, they speak SQL, Python, in and out, right? And the data engineers who were aligned to business, they were working in sprint together with the business stakeholders. So they weren't working in silos and, okay, we have built something up at the last. And hey, can you just see and start consuming it off? So I think that wasn't the way how we did it last time. So right from the scratch, right from the beginning, once the basic fundamentals have been set up by your data platform team, your respective data engineer, data analyst, and perhaps data scientist as well, it would be a great idea if they can be aligned and work closely with your business team before they roll out any product or any solution. So yeah, and again, tools is secondary one here. Doesn't really matter which tool you are consuming. I mean, right now, most of the tools have similar 80 to 90% of the capacity. So that's not really a deal breaker. The deal breaking thing would be to have right processes in place to achieve what you really want to do. In my opinion, what do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Those foundations are key. I mean, like a single source of truth when it comes to the data, and if that's presented to everyone in a very structured and accessible way, actually, we don't, like, from my perspective, don't mind how people access that data. We had, some teams querying the database directly themselves using, SQL or something like that. And it's like, well, this isn't, data literacy is not about offering a SQL training course to everyone in the organization because it's not relevant. Yeah. So you do have some people that know that, but other people want to, like I said, connect Power BI to it, or you can't even connect Excel to it if you want to. Like, if people are so used to that connection and that way to interpret and visualize data, then we should be able to give them that access to it. What was really important, it didn't matter whether you were the executive checking your dashboard or the data scientist writing your query. It's like you're all running from that same source data. And that was what was really important to us. And the reason we took that approach, not only for the benefits of the wider team, but simply internally, we didn't have the capacity to fulfill everyone's request very quickly. It was much quicker for us to say, we'll give you access to this table that you need. You can do all the visualizations yourself, all the interpretations.
Okay, exactly, lovely, right? So and I also have a related experience when you have said that. So once we had once I saw that the stakeholders had good level of understanding, decent level of understanding for them to self-serve themselves, this was the exact thing which we rolled out at the later stage to promote data democratization. That, hey, we will try to give you a basic dashboard with correct and accurate data for you to consume. And once this is settled, you can tweak around, twist around, and build relevant dashboards for you by yourself, so which can help you scale up as a company as well. So,
Yeah, sounds like, data literacy is important in helping people in different teams in their decision making as well, right? So, how, I guess, can organizations, because it sounds like, from your experience, the data is quite accessible to all employees, but not every organization is like that, right? There are some that, encounter a bit more of like a, maybe it's a private or some security information involved. So, how, I guess, do you make sure that data is accessible to all employees regardless of their role or department? And yeah.
okay. So this particular thing is called as data governance, and this is one of the topics which is close to my heart as well. Because I worked in a data security product development company before, and so I can relate to some of my experience from the data governance point of view. Because I have a couple of incidents, or rather a couple of experience building data warehouse from scratch, right? So having said that, data governance is one of the another critical factor for you to create your data warehouse, because you have to serve multiple lines of business, finance, sales, marketing, and not all data could be directly consumed by other departments. For example, finance may have some really sensitive data which might not be relevant to marketing or in sales teams, right? So once you have the fundamentals set, once you have the centralized data warehouse set, let's say if that suits you to have a centralized data warehouse, so then you would start to incorporate some data governance measures. So for examples, you could have some critical columns or numbers which are relevant to finance, and you may not want the other stakeholders from marketing perhaps to have access to those columns. So there are techniques wherein you can perhaps just mask that data, or perhaps just create a view on top of your tables to not make that data visible to your other departments. So data privacy and data governance would actually be another element of your data warehouse once you have the key fundamentals set out. So there are different techniques. You have data security, so you can implement encryption, tokenization, masking, or you can also restrict some of the sensitive fields or columns at row level or at column level to relevant departments. But the key for success over here is that your centralized team and your business data engineers should be working closely with each other. And also these engineers, the business data engineers, should be working closely with your business stakeholders as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, I completely agree with the approaches that you've mentioned, and a few techniques on how to do that. Do you restrict the full data itself by column by row, or do we create effectively a transformed copy of that data into a new table that is maybe aggregated or less sensitive? And that's some of the techniques that we used as well, because it kind of took the load off the heady compute in order to get to that first step that everyone would have to go through anyway. So it's like, okay, we've kind of taken we've removed that hard step for you, and then you've got the easy step of just accessing the data. So there's been some good techniques you mentioned.
Okay, cool. And I guess, do you have any tips for people who are perhaps not traditionally trained in data to sort of develop this data literacy? Yeah, because I know the lady you mentioned earlier, she asked you directly, is it about communicating with your data teams directly, or is it, with perhaps just reading up on articles, or like what is it?
Yeah, I think we need to be aware people do have day jobs, and asking like a water engineer to go and read an article, data governance is, never no time for that. And I think it's about making it relatable, and I think there's To be honest, I've seen it. There's a slight degree of maybe arrogance with like an IT perspective coming into operational processes where it's like, we're the data experts, we know how to do this. But, a lot of processes, particularly in, my field of water operations, there's been SCADA equipment, which is basically operation technology, monitoring pumps, monitoring sensors. People know about data. They know about how to interpret how the site is performing based on dashboards. But it's about how do we move them forward into this like next generation of technology. I don't go in and lecture them. It's more about, you guys are the experts, and they really are. They understand what they're looking at. It's about giving them the foundations to take it really to the next level and automating any of their pain points that they really don't add a lot of value in, processing or cleaning up data that could just be scheduled, automated.
So I think storytelling, in my view, is really relevant in this regard, right? So example, if you would have a domain expert data engineer, or perhaps is an expert for marketing, they understand perhaps how different marketing products like Salesforce or different other products work, what are campaigns which are relevant for an e-commerce company. Let's say if the data engineer would have some experience around that. So I think the fundamentals are set already, and then in collaboration with other data analysts, perhaps should be really sound in how that particular business works. So I think they can build up the fundamentals in the interest for your non-technical data experts in a way that, okay, they can start with something, let's say for your design or for your marketing team in this regards, and do some kind of a small storytelling. Hey, do you know we have just interestingly find out that if you would do this kind of a campaign at this hour for this particular cohort of users, you might see some interesting results. Because as per the trends, what we have seen is that at this particular hour or this particular cohort, we really get a good response. So my point over here is that if you would start off with some kind of storytelling to your business stakeholders who are not technical, then this would definitely grab their attention. And once this is done, then so I think this sky's the limit, is it?
Okay. Yeah. The storytelling, that's an interesting one. I mean, we hear a lot about it happening right now with like the data analyst teams. And I think going back to the challenges when organizations face, how do you improve the data literacy across the organization? Yeah. Are there ways to do that, or is it on the onus of the person? Because you mentioned that people have day jobs. They're busy, so
absolutely.
Yeah.
I can give an example of what we were doing, and unfortunately, I had support of my bosses in one of my previous organizations. So we had this culture of sharing monthly data. I mean, not the raw data, but sharing monthly numbers in the form of dashboards by each and every department. So finance, marketing, sales, they would have their numbers or their results shared on a monthly basis. So which was a great thing, which we as a company learned what all different departments did and what results they had. And back then we didn't have any thing done by the data team back then. So this was the opportunity or this stage for us to make an impact at the organization level. So fortunately, that was the case with my company. Being a smaller company, it was still possible, scalable, and doable in that regards. So having that stage in and doing some kind of storytelling each quarter, let's say we'll just focus on finance for this particular quarter or marketing for this particular quarter, and having to present that at the organization level in that forum really made an impact at the organization level. But again, this might not be a right technique if you are a big company, you have thousands of employees of you set. So you might need different tips and tricks over there.
When it comes to the thing, you can't change what you don't measure.
Yeah.
Being able to kind of present that back and make it really relevant, I think, to the people who are influencing those metrics so that they can see that continual feedback loop. And I think that's how you bring it to life. As exactly what you said, is playing it back as a story, but making it better. Yeah.
Do you think there's like a layer of try to sell the idea of data to non-data professionals, like telling them, if you use this, and with the help of these like weekly discussions and everything, people get to see like, oh, this is how data is improving our sales or our revenue. Is there a bit of that kind of opinion going around sometimes? Or do you hear?
I don't know. I don't really believe there are like not data people out there. I think it's about how they interact with the kind of the latest stages of data. 99% of people have smartphones interacting with apps, and those apps are collecting data and they're interacting with data constantly, but you don't see it. And I mean, maybe that's like part of the story, is like you're not trying to scare people off with horrible queries and tables and infrastructure. So it's just about making it consumable. It's almost a technique of, you don't want them to think they are becoming data people. They are just using the data now. I see. Exactly.
Cool. Arpit, you have anything to add about that?
No, mostly I had similar experiences to what Tom said. I'm not collecting any recent example, but mostly in terms of what I feel is similar to what Tom said on the circus.
Okay, cool. And now with, like you mentioned, smartphones, people are collecting data everywhere, not as this cost ChatGPT, OpenAI, everyone is using it. Is there any, I guess, miscommunication or expectations when it comes to the data team with what, they're like, this is data, no, I know data. And a bit stress on the audience nowadays.
I think the bars have now, interestingly, now the bars are a bit higher with the advent of these tools and technologies. And now I think with the integration of these AI capabilities in your traditional tools, you can now build up something really interesting which you didn't thought of doing that before, right? So for example, if the domain experts, so they can get some recommendations with these AI tools to perhaps view their data of what they did in that particular segment in a complete different way. So that is really interesting, which would be relevant for them. But again, without having this data fluency at first, okay, if you're not sure how to consume a basic dashboard or a basic visualization, you might not be able to get even better benefits with the AI recommendations also plugged in these tools. So I think these tools and these technologies would take your game to the next level, but you would still be required to have the basic and the fundamentals before you can, you are ready to propel your rocket off.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm glad you mentioned it as like a tool and like an asset, because we have that debate internally as well around using AI to write code, and okay, well, does that make developers redundant? It's scientific.
That's just and
I mean, if you compare it to, say, like something very simple like the app of Google, and being able to go onto a forum and copy and paste someone else's code from Stack Overflow and then putting it in your own code, it's like you're kind of already using a tool and using built up knowledge from other people. So I see the kind of AI tools as being in the next stage of that, really. And I think the difficulty will be is it's still based on what's already been done. And if we talk about innovations and creativities, like I'm sure it will get there, but right now it's still based on the work of other people. So you're not going to leapfrog your competition by copying other people effectively. But I think they are very powerful tools for us to consider and use. And if it helps people understand data, I mean, that's even better for us.
Yeah, and you mentioned about power, right? So I 100% agree to this word. And with power comes great responsibility, right? So unless you're not very sure on what you're doing, you could have like hazardous results as well. So this is what it makes us even more important for people to really know what they're doing into and which arena they are getting into.
It's going to become more of a skill how to use the tool rather than maybe like the code it provides. Because, we've experimented with writing code and it's been quite hit and miss on what it can come up with. And I don't think we're quite there yet, replacing data scientists. Good.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, if we continue talking about ChatGPT, I think we can go on further. So, how about we sort of wrap things up? And do you have any last thoughts of data literacy and data fluency for all employees?
I mean, it's not going to go away, and every organization is going to have to deal with it. I think most organizations are already, invested in it in some way, and as long as they have a strong foundation, I don't see there being too much of a challenge to upskill everyone to at least consume the data in the way that they want to. That self-service is going to be really important.
Yep, and an advocate of promoting data as a career for future students as well, myself. So there's also, there's not a bad time. No time is bad time to, if you must step in and chip in into building your career in data. So having fundamentals and understanding, if you are able to get some of the courses in your schools and universities, that's really a great thing. And despite having these other technologies, AI, ChatGPT coming, I think data literacy, data fluency, like you still have to consume data, right? Isn't that? You still have to create data. So I think at least for another 5-10 years, I still see people doing that. So it is still a good time if people who want to chip into data and build their career out of data.
And I don't think it's too late to change your career.
Yeah.
I studied business and economics at university, and so I wasn't particularly focused on IT and data. There were some statistics, but not in too much detail. And then moving through into a very business analyst IT role, again, I wasn't particularly that close to the data. It was about strategy and processes. So it's been quite a big career change for myself as well. I think hopefully most people can make that adapt to the new world as well. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think, again, we can go on to talk about this for really long if we want to, but about, data at the end of the day, technical skills are important, and going into the soft skills, that whole part about strategizing, knowing what to do with the data, that's a whole other set of skills and experience that you need. So, unfortunately, I think that's about all the time that we have for today. So, thank you to both of our speakers for providing us with all more knowledge and insights on this topic, data literacy. And thank you to our lovely audience for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and we'll see you again next time when we discuss another hot topic on the exchange by evolution. Bye!